Well, you know it's going to be a good time when one of your all-time favorite contemporary prog artists just keep putting out music. And for once, I'm going to actually start talking about it because they have released quite a number of albums that I haven't had the chance to talk about. But I'm going to sit down, I'm going to just dive in. So let's do this. The Tower by Motorpsycho. So, Motorpsycho is a Norwegian progressive rock band, and they really got their start in the late 80s, and just since then have been very prolific in just putting out album after album after album after album. The one main claim that really broke them out was Timothy's Monster in 1994, 1995. From there, they've been doing a lot of just crazy stuff. Like, they're very similar to Porcupine Tree in starting in the early 90s and really changing styles from here to there. But the difference here is that Motorpsycho is a lot more prolific and a lot more fluid in their playing styles. Like, they're a lot more jazzy, they're a little bit more heavy hitting from the get-go, and they like to do a lot of collaborations with different artists. Now, I was really introduced to them with their 2012 release of The Death-Defying Unicorn. This was one of my favorite albums from that year, and it really pushed the boundaries of what music could do by really infusing this jazzy, metally approach and utilizing very classical instruments with brass and woodwinds and strings and really coming together in an orchestra of sound. Now, since then, I have just fallen in love with this band. Again, Timothy's Monster being one that I really love. I know the other one that people really like is the Flander Time, their 2001 release. Not a big fan of this one. I know it's one of their more famous ones, but it's not really for me. My favorite one, even though I love the Death-Defying Unicorn, is actually Heavy Metal Fruit with Gulliby's Travels. Gulliby's Travels is just so dripping in brilliance, and that build up and the plateau and the climax and the payoffs. This is what I love about Motorpsycho, and the reason why I keep coming back, because each of their albums since then, pretty much right from Heavy Metal Fruit, has something in there that is dripping in and gushing in brilliance. With Still Life and Eggplant, it's Afterglow. With Behind the Sun, we had that, I believe, the Hell suite within there, like the finalization of the Hell. There Be Monsters, it was the first track where it was that symphony of noise and coming together. The previous album that they released this year, I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but it had some really great moments and some really great experimentations. So, with all of that coming into The Tower, right now it is sitting on Prog Archives as being the best album of their discography. I'm not quite sure I agree with this. This is, in my opinion, the first album since Heavy Metal Fruit that's lacking in that dripping in brilliance moment. Like, there are some great moments on this album, don't get me wrong, but each of those albums that I've already talked about, there was this nugget, there was this moment that I just melted when I heard, and unfortunately, I'm not connected too much with this album. I'm not 100% sure why. I mean, on the surface, it's following a lot of the same notes that have already been hit. We've got that dripping guitars, that really meaty and guttural playing styles, as well as the mellotron that's really that gnarly aspect, and the two are really grinding with one another, providing such a great turnout. This is felt right off the get-go with the title track of The Tower, and it does feel like this immense tower of, you know, these different levels of music that's going on here. I really enjoy this ride. Again, it's that deep and heavy and dense. It's almost like that chocolate cake where it's just so dense and rich. And so I knew right from the get-go that, okay, we're dealing with grade A material, but I'm not quite feeling that oomph that I was hoping for. Not quite yet, at least. Now, the second track of, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Bartok of the Universe? Bartok? Yeah. It's got that groove that I love with Motorpsycho, that, like, heavy oomph where it's just like, And that's I gravitate to this, and I love that heavy atmosphere without being straight up metal. And that's one thing that I love about these guys. They're able to provide such a heavy atmosphere without resorting to the metal playing style, and I love how they're able to do that and create that atmosphere. And Bartok of the Universe really solidifies this and really like paints that new and dark picture. Now the third song of ASFE. I really enjoy this. I love the funky atmosphere. I love the fun playing styles. I like how the first couple of vocalizations and the first couple of lyrics on here is almost like spoken. And I like that kind of lightheartedness. And it's got almost like that really driving side. And it's a little bit lighter than the first two tracks. My only complaint so far is that each of the tracks really don't deviate too far from the mean. Like it's very centristic, and it doesn't play too far out of where they had started from. And ASFE really suffers because of this. It's almost like a great road trip where you're just driving through prairies, and sure, it's great for the first couple of minutes, but after about a half hour, you're like, okay, let's get something a little bit different here. And so it does kind of feel a little bit like it's lost its power by the midpoint, and I'm kind of begging for something a little bit different. Now, when we come into the track of the Intrepid Explorer, I can't pronounce the fourth track. This is this playing style that I particularly like with Motorpsycho. They take their time and they really build the song, and it starts off by kind of laying down the foundation of the song, and then they go into this jazz sequence and they really start to build up the song, and that's where I love with Motorpsycho. That's why I love Gullaby's Travels. That's why I love a lot of the sequences within the Death-Defying Unicorn. So when we come into the Intrepid Explorer, we're starting to get that build up. We're starting to build up that momentum. Now, my biggest concern, and this might be the biggest concern of the whole album, is when we get into these build-ups, I don't really feel like it's going anywhere with it. Like, I enjoy the climb, I'm enjoying the hike up the mountain, but once we come to the pinnacle, it doesn't feel like it's really taking its time to look at the land as we're at the top of this mountain. Or to use the metaphor from the album, it doesn't feel like once we get to the top of the tower, we're really looking at the land around us to get a real sense of the achievement of the song. It just kind of peters out as though we're right back at the beginning. And that's essentially what the song does by just going straight back into the main chorus without really having any kind of that momentum that leads us through it. It just kind of dissipates. And it does bring me out of the song a little bit. Now, when we come into the fifth track of Stardust, this is a nice kind of midpoint of the album. It's much more subdued, it's a lot more acoustic, it's very intimate of the band, which is really needed because once we come into the sixth track of Every Dream Home, there's a dream of something else. This one is probably the heaviest track off the album so far, and where it goes within it, again, we've got that jazzy playing style within the midsection of this track. It wanders here and there, and it's always changing, always shifting, which is then paired very well with the Magpul, which again is another one of those very soothing, very acoustic, very intimate playing style, again, very much like Stardust. Now the last three tracks are kind of sandwiched. We've got two big epics and one kind of more succinct track. The two epics being the Pacific Sonata and the Ship of Fools, the midpoint being the Cuckoo. And the Pacific Sonata is a great play out. I like listening to this and just drifting away, but again, it kind of suffers the same essence of the Intrepid, I can't pronounce that, the Intrepid Explorer, in that we've got that build up, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Same with the Ship of Fools. Like, the Ship of Fools is a little bit more on the heavy side, and even being at almost touching 15 minutes, again, I don't feel like the build-ups really necessitate or justify the runtime. It's a little bit of a shame. I mean, both of these have great playing styles, and the jam sessions that they have are dripping in beauty, but it doesn't really connect too much with me. Now, the Cuckoo, on the other hand, being the shorter track in this sandwich, it actually does connect with me. I love the heavy playing styles. I love that jamming that's going on here. Again, it's very similar to a lot of those heavier tracks that we've heard before, like The Tower, but Talk of the Universe, as well as Every Dream Home. So it has that really heavy playing. But I mean, overall, this album is still a great time. It's probably one of the stronger albums that the band has done from start to finish. Like a lot of the albums that they have put out, even though I've said have that nugget is surrounded by a lot of music. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes I just tune in for the that nugget. Like, for example, the Here Be Monsters, I really only listen to the first track. After the first track, I kind of tune out and I put the rest of the album away. Same with Heavy Metal Fruit, even though that's probably my favorite album from there, I only really listen to Gulliby's Travels. Here, at least, I can listen to the whole thing and enjoy the whole thing from start to finish, very much like The Other Side of the Sun or the Still Life and Eggplant. But this one is a little bit longer, it's a little bit more meaty, there's a lot more to hang on to, and it doesn't really have that glowing nugget that I was hoping for, but it does provide a great time from start to finish. So overall, it's still a very great album, probably their strongest overall since the Death-Defying Unicorn, even though it doesn't have that oomph, that nugget that I was hoping for. Overall, this is probably one that you'll want to pick up in physical format. This is one that if you can find it on vinyl, it's a great listen. There's not a whole lot of downtime on this album, and those pieces that I'm not really connecting with, still I can recognize the beauty of the musicianship that's coming on board. So that's my take. What do you guys think? Did you love this album? Did you hate this album? Let me know of your own thoughts of Motorpsycho's The Tower by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.